right, hello everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Lit in English. This is a journey where we are going to present these amazing knowledge that we have learned from our teacher, from all of the wise men that have helped us understand these amazing principle that can help us apply that in our life to have a deep understanding of our inner self as well as moving toward a holistic life. So thank you for joining us today. And just a quick recap on what we did last week. So last week we introduced the seven holistic wells. And prior to that, we introduced the very first out of the four principle, which is the principle of light. And the principle of light tell us that we need to be proactive rather than reactive so that we can work on the four main category that greatly influence our life, which is the inner self, health, relationship, and finance. And last week, we went over the seven holistic wealth. And these are the seven character that we need to work on in order to maintain the lit home, because rather than work on each individual category, like finance, for example, most people focus too much time working on finance just to realize later in their life that they actually trading the health, the inner self, and their relationship for finance. And their life is a bit very imbalanced. Therefore, the principle that we got to learn is that because everything is interconnected, we don't just have one problem. There are many, many combination of these four. Therefore, in order to be proactive, we need to work on all seven of the seven holistic wealth. And it's worth mentioning that the seven holistic wealth can also be divided into two categories, the material ones, with or some might call the tangible wealth, as in the thing that you can see, the thing that you can feel. And that would be the top three, the lit house here, which is physics, material, and capability. At the bottom of the house, closer to the foundation of the inner self, we have wisdom present, nobility, and virtue. So last week we went over the important information of attaining wisdom present, virtue, nobility, and how it can increase the value of not only product, but it can also increase the value of a person. Okay. So if you were to look at two people and without getting to know them, without knowing their background, they look very much similar. However, if we were to compare a highly successful person with a person who just live an average everyday life, we can tell the difference in their immaterial value, which are wisdom, present, virtue, and nobility. And in last week presentation, I gave the example of, let's say, a president of a country like the United States of America, for example. When he walk into the room, you will feel the energy. It will be different. But if a homeless person, for example, walk into the room, he or she will give out a different form of energy. And understanding this, okay, understanding this, there are more to life than just focusing on money. There are more to life than just focusing on finance. And even if a person aware of the other three categories, which are inner self, health, and relationship, oftentimes we kind of clueless going through life without knowing what is important and how to increase the wellness of it. And this is the beauty of the first four principle. And if you can go back to 2 weeks ago when we mentioned the very, very first principle, the principle of light, is tell us that in order to get darkness outside of the room, all we have to do is to bring light into the room and the darkness will disappear. That is the equivalent of being proactive. Instead of waiting for a problem to occur, we are taking active action to prevent the problem from turning into a problem in the first place. And that is turning light in the dark room, and darkness will disappear. And in that presentation, we share the example of researchers, scientists, big corporate of America. They apply this method, and instead of focusing on the problem, they focus on what works. And thanks to that, their productivity increased, their teamwork is increasing. And there are many, many applications of the principle of light. And the principle of light indeed can be applied in all seven of the holistic wealth. And one thing that we are going to discuss very, very deeply in our journey, that is wisdom. And we can also apply the principle of light to light up the room of wisdom. And this is extremely, extremely important. Growing up in Vietnam from Southeast Asia, the belief is that the older you get, the wiser you get. But that is a false belief, because there are some people who are much older, but they still have not acquired wisdom. But there are younger people who are very wise, and they have reached a great understanding by lighting up their wisdom. They see the light and they following the light, and they was able to achieve a much higher level of wisdom. And of course, we are going to in great detail how to make that happen throughout the journey, because as you can see, wisdom is the foundation of the inner self, and it is also the foundation for the lit house. And today I would like to introduce you to the second principle, and that would be activating the human brain. So this is a great time to get a piece of paper, pen and a piece of paper, and we can discuss further into today's topic. And this is one of my favorite principle, by the way. So let's mark number 2 to represent the second principle, which is activation of the human brain, or activating human brain. So I'm going to write it in short, and I'm just going to write activating human brain. So there is a very famous research, and the research said that throughout evolution, we has developed the human brain to the size that we have today. However, the evolution periods are taken over a very, very long period of time, and it is like the ancient brain is still in there, and it's developing and developing. And in order to understand the psychology of human behavior, there is a scientist introduced his study in the early 1900s on this. And in the beginning, it was very, very popular, but over time, people started to have doubt. But up until today, I still haven't found any other explaining or any way to demonstrate the difference between different human behavior from this. So let me go ahead and introduce you to the three part of the human brain that greatly influence each of our decisions. So the first one, it will be called the reptilian brain. And let me go ahead and write out this reptilian. So we have reptilian brain. And then the second part, it is called the mammalian brain. And then last but not least, we have the human brain. So the theories go that if we were to look at evolution, we notice that the reptilian, they are operating on based on fear. And you might have heard of the term a lizard brain. So if you were to observe a lizard, you will see that the lizard is always paying attention to its surrounding. And as soon as it's going to hear a sound or it's noticed that something is coming, now what does the lizard do? The lizard would start to run away because that is how the reptilian brain works. That is how the lizard survive because most of the time it could not fight back. So the strategy of the reptilian is that it's think about, is it safe for me to be in this environment? And oftentimes, as soon as the lizard or the reptilian brain kick in and it recognizes fear, it's often choose to run away. And for the mammalian brain, as the species evolved to mammal, we started to notice the operation based on love. And if you live in the US, you might hear incident like bear attacking human. And the researcher found out that bear, they usually don't attack people unless the the people happen to walk near a bear, like a mother bear with its baby, and that is how they get attacked. And the same goes for many mammalian animals. And that is because the mammalian brain is it works based on love, the love of the mother who take care of the children. So instead of running away in fear and secure their safety, the mammalian brain actually operation based on love and is act on it. And this at this point is kind of remind me of a very important question that I asked myself when I was in my 20s. In fact, I was having a conversation with one of my best friend, John, and we were discussing what is the meaning of life, because at that age we kind of want to figure out what we want to do with our life. And we came across with a very simple but very profound answer. And the answer said that the meaning of life is survival and replication. Okay, survival and replication. Why is it important for this discussion? And it is important because the reptilian brain operation on fear, it is very, very good at survival. It is all about survival, which make a lot of sense because you have to be able to survive before you can carry your offspring. So it is more important to survive first. And then once you figured out how to survive, then you can focus more on love. And when we look into nature, we can see that animal like fish or turtle, for example, they have a lot of offspring, like they lay a lot of eggs. But when we reach to the mammal, the number reduced to much smaller, maybe five, even 10. For human, often we only have one. Some mother give birth to a twin or a triplets, which means like two baby or three baby. But usually for the mammalian brain, they because they are acting based on love, they motivated by love. Therefore, they tend to take a better care with their children. So understanding that the two very basic instinct of how the brain works is based on survival and replication, it's easy for us to understand why we often feel fear and also why we often feel love, how the baby relies on the mother and the father to take care of them. So these characteristics ingrained deeply in our brain and in the way that we function. And understanding this, it is easier for us to activate the human brain because in fact, you know what? You might think that it is natural to use a human brain, but the truth is most of us are not using our brain effectively. There are research studies showing that we only understand 10% of the capability of our brain. And most often people underuse the capability of their brain. And I have learned some research studies showing that the neuroplasticity of the brain, as in the past, people used to believe that once once a person grow into an adult, then their brain is fixed, which means that they cannot develop their brain into any further structure. But the study of the elasticity of the brain show that by learning, by studying, you can actually create new neural pathway. And the researcher and the scientists show that the more that you learn, regardless of how old you are, you can build the neural path, and it's truly help you increase your wisdom, your understanding in a much deeper level. So the characteristic of the human brain is foresight. Foresight. Now, why is this important? This is important because by having future vision, by having the ability to foresight, people can come up with strategy, they can come up with invention, and this help us dominate the earth itself. And this is something very, very special. And the principle of activating the human brain tell us that, you know what, even though we have the ability to have future vision, even though we have the ability to come up with ideas, to come up with strategy, we are still greatly influenced by the mammalian brain, which is operating on love. We are still very much influenced on the reptilian brain, which operates on fear. And it is important because without fear, we might not be able to survive. Okay. And if we cannot survive, then it would be meaningless to love. Therefore, oftentimes we give in on fear first, and then we are seeking love. And that kind of clouding the real ability of the human brain, which is foresight. And the principle of activating the human brain will help us understand how the brain functions and how to truly activating the human brain. And let me tell you the importance of activating the foresight ability. If we were to look at Jeff Bezos, the creator of Amazon, and if we were to read his story on the success of Amazon, we would know that back in 1996, that is almost 30 years ago, Jeff Bezos had a vision about an online store. Nobody at that time believed him, so he had to start his business in his own garage. And he transformed that business model of selling book into a trillion dollar industry of today. Now that is the power of foresight. And you can find a similar story with Elon Musk, for example. He had many vision of electric car, the importance of electric car, and now he is operating Tesla. He had the important vision of space exploration, and now he had his SpaceX company. And there are many more examples on foresight, the ability to foresee the movement of the universe and take the position that can ensure both your survival and replication, and many more to come. And specifically, it can also help we reach wisdom. All right. So in order to understand how the three brains work in a deeper introduction, I would like you to get another piece of paper here. And then let's us draw a small circle. Maybe it's more like an eclipse like that. And this is a representation of a reptilian brain. So this would be reptilian. All right. So again, the reptilian is operating based on fear. And it is very good at survival. Survival. Now, it is worth noting that when information come to us in formation. All right. So when information come to us as a human, it will go through the reptilian brain first. And the reptilian brain will analyze the information. And this happened very quickly. the reptilian brain will kick in and see if this information would be dangerous to its survival. Then fear will kick in. And this is one of the reasons why when we see snake, we hated it. We have fear, like you will feel the hair behind your neck stand up, or the fear of height. If you were to stand on a very tall building, you will have the fear of height. Now, why is that? We have those fear because it's help us survive, right? And once the information come in and it show danger, it show fear, then the information stop right there. It stop at the reptilian brain. But if the information is positive, as in it doesn't have negative impact on survival, then we notice that the information will pass forward to the mammalian brain. Mammalian brain. And this is the brain that operating based on love. And this is about replication. So let's say the information passed through the reptilian brain and it is okay. It doesn't endanger survival, then it will continue to go to the mammalian brain. And now this is very, very critical. The mammalian brain recognizes emotion like love, namely positive emotion. Therefore, when the information passed to the mammalian brain will ask the question, is this information, is it going to generate a positive emotion or will it generate a negative emotion? Now, if the information is negative, it doesn't have to be directly influencing on survival. I'm saying that it doesn't affect survival, but let's say the information is negative. It's bring up negative emotion. Then the mammalian brain will kick it back to the reptilian brain. And then fear will kick in and the lizard will run away. And that ensures the survival of our species. Okay. So this is the representation of negative emotion. But if the emotion is positive, like joy, like happiness, like love, okay? So if the emotion is positive, then the information will get passed over to the human brain. This would be the human brain. Right? The information come in, it check on survival, it's good to go. Go to the mammalian brain, it check to see if the information is positive, then that information will continue to move to the human brain. And this is also called the prefrontal cortex, which is the front of the brain. And this help us with the abstract concept of value, our imagination, our conceptualization, problem solving. It will be right over here. And if the information is good for survival, if the information bring up positive emotion, and it will activating the human brain. Now, what is a good example for it? Let's say if you see a delicious steak dinner, okay, the most juiciest, most delicious um, steak dinner, the information of that will kick into the reptilian, and it is good for survival. It's get approved from the reptilian brain, and that information continue to travel to the mammalian brain, and it's recognized that that delicious steak dinner generate positive emotion, the emotion of joy, the idea of deliciousness of how you will choose on that juicy steak meal, and that can help with survival. It will help with how good you feel. That information will go to the human brain. And that is where you see value. That is where you can have the imagination of you like eating that delicious steak dinner. And there are many, many more information happening when the information get to the human brain. And this is how we activating the human brain. And the value of getting here is that it will activate vision. Very, very important. Or precisely the future vision, because you would play the information in your head and you will be able to see the vision of your desire. And the story of the success of Jeff Bezos of Amazon is one of the many stories about the success of activating the human brain to be able to see that vision. Okay. So as you can see, there is the connection between this brain. And there is something happen here where I highlight. And it is important for us to understand this. Okay. So what happened to this area? I would call it, this is how you activate the mammalian brain. So just imagine for a short moment that you are a lizard, you are a reptilian. And let's say that you have successfully figured out a way to survive, and you are feeling pretty good about your ability to remain alive. So when information come in, you know how to deal with it. So this area here is the part where the reptilian brain want to get to in order to evolve to a bigger brain, the mammalian brain, which can understand emotion. We can understand the negative information versus the positive information. So if I were to imagine that I was a lizard, this is how I would get into the next state in order to feel emotion, to feel the connection between parent to children. Similarly, the connection between the mammalian brain and the human brain is how one can activating the human brain. And the way to do that is first, it has to support our survival. And then it has to bring up positive emotion. Okay. And lucky for us, our mentor, our teacher, share with us exactly how to do it. I would like to invite you to get another piece of paper and write this down along with me. So a simple way to activating the human brain is by having lesson. Okay? And this lesson can bring you deep understanding about something. Understanding. And this information will help you reach enlightenment. Light. Okay. So this is a simple step to activating the human brain. This is the magic of the intersection of the mammalian brain and the human brain. And by the way to activate it is to looking for a lesson, looking for the the opportunity to learn. Because the more that you learn, the new book that you read or the new TV program that you watch, doesn't matter how you do it, but you can get new lesson from that activity, and that new lesson will trigger a deep understanding of that particular topic. And through that deep understanding, you apply it. You get to do it. You get the information, and now you need to take action. So after you have the deep understanding, you apply application. Application. And through the application, through activity, by really, really doing it, you will find your answer. Answer. And this is how you activating brain, not just the human brain. This is the formula to activating any brain. Let's look at how the reptilian brain developed into the mammalian brain. So the lizard, the reptilian, learned the lesson that, you know what, I can survive better using fear, and I can figure out what I need to do to survive. That's the lesson. The deep understanding is that is applying all of those survival tactics. So the lizard apply the deep understanding, and then it's figured out the answer of how to survive. And through that, it's evolved out of fear, out of survival into love. So similarly, the mammalian gain a new lesson, new understanding, the deep understanding about the positive emotion. It's almost like an upgrade because positive emotion mean that better for survival, that better for replication or reproduction, as in having more baby. And it's applying that lesson and it's finding the answer to the problem of survival and replication. So if you look at any population of animal or human, once it can figure out how to master survival and replication, then the man will evolve into developing the human brain. Now, the next question that I have for you is, what next? Okay. So imagine that the brain can develop even further into something that we don't have an answer for yet. Well, I believe it is happening. There is something changing very, very quickly in our world, especially the technology. As you can see, AI is developing, and then all of this virtual reality, all of this cloud computing. So I feel like there is a step further. And there is the true meaning of activating the human brain. Because obviously the principle is not about activating the mammalian brain. The lesson is activating the human brain. So it's nice that we can activate the mammalian brain to gain vision as a person. But what can we do to evolve even further so that information can pass through a deeper state of consciousness? And this is the journey that we are going on, the journey of understanding your inner self, right? Because obviously the name is not about understanding the human brain. It is about understanding your inner self, your inner vision, your inner peace. And the formula work the same way. That is, we got to figure out the new lesson. What have we been questioning, contemplating? And once we understand it, how do we apply it? What is our application? And through application, we will find our answer. So back to activating the human brain. We don't have a clear answer yet, but I do believe that it has something to do with vision. And based on the previous development of the reptilian brain and the mammalian brain, I can safely make the assumption that this vision has to be positive. Okay. Because if the vision happened to be negative, if the vision is negative, then it will kick back to the mammalian brain. So what do I mean by positive vision? That could be the vision of peace, right? The vision of having wealth. And I'm confident to say that the seven holistic well, as we introduce it, is the simplest way to help us stand above any problem that might occur in life. And those are inner self, health, relationship, and finance. So if we can practice, if we can exercise the positive vision, the positive information based on the seven holistic wealth, my personal belief is that we will be activating something very, very special deep within us. And throughout history, people have talking about the state of enlightenment, the state of awakening, to have a deep connection to the cosmos knowledge. And I think there is some truth to it because there are scientists in the world like Nikola Tesla, like Albert Einstein. Their understanding of this universe is just incomprehensible. And people like Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, how could they have the vision, the idea that literally has changed our world, that changed the world itself? And there are many, many other. And I think they are onto something. And in this trend, we recognize that it is important to be positive. It is important to be good because if we walk the path of darkness, then the information is simply kicked back to the previous brain. Therefore, it is extremely, extremely important that we exercise the lesson, deep understanding, apply it, and then reach enlightenment, reach an answer. And this is important because reality is most of us are still living life using the reptilian brain, right? Because we still have fear of survival. Because right now we have the Israeli war, Ukraine is at war with Russia, and there are many, many places on earth that are still at war, and people still struggle with survival. Even with the people who are living here in the US, they still struggle with their 9-to-5 job. And most of the time, we tend to operate with our reptilian brain. And for people who found love and have the understanding about positive and negative emotion, they can live there. But the people who can activate in the human brain, the people who have vision, namely positive vision, they are doing something great, like Bill Gates, like Jeff Bezos, like Elon Musk, and many, many others. And thankfully, in this journey, even though we are only at the second of the four principle, we have the tool, the principle of light that tell us to be proactive. And now we have a formula to truly activating the human brain, or just activating the brain in general. And I can't emphasize this enough, but it will be focusing on positive, right? Positive survival, positive emotion, positive vision, and I guess anything that can bring good to the world. And borrowing the perception of the principle of light is simply said that, we have to move toward the light. We need to move toward the goodness, to positivity, because when we light up the dark room, darkness will go away. When we focus on the good, or as my teacher, my professor, Tao Shaw said it, when you appreciate the good will appreciate. Okay, extremely important to focus on positivity, and in this way, the principle of activating the human brain is deeply connected to the principle of light. It's simple to be proactive. It's simple to just turn on that switch. And if you was born in darkness, it is important to move toward light. And if you are already in a good place, if you are already born in light, it is important to move forward. Some might choose the dark path, but understanding these very basic principles, it is important for us to be good and to do good and to be the change that we want to be in this world. And to that, I would like to end my presentation here. It has been great. Thank you very much for joining me. And next week we will explore the third principle, and I think that will be an interesting one. So thanks for being present with us. Thanks for joining, and I will see you next week. All right. Bye bye, everybody.